Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the very first masterclass hosted by us at playbooks.live and our awesome panel of experts that you'll get to meet very shortly. Playbooks is a collaborations platform where you can run all of your meetings and keep all of your action points all in one place and make sure all the content and knowledge that you have that you want to be able to share with clients and your teams is all there ready for you in one platform. And today I'm delighted to introduce you to our panel of experts discussing how to scale up your advisory services. So Greg here, who's the founder of Playbooks, is hugely passionate about small business, and I think that will come out in the conversations that we have with all of you today as well. And so we're super keen to share knowledge with others who are consulting into businesses as advisors, who are running your own companies, to help you scale and thrive. And today's event is exactly about doing that. So I'd like to introduce you to our panelists, Matt Green from Unleashed. How are you, Matt? Nice to see you. Vanessa Boschnick from Spotlight. How are you?
Excellent. Thanks for having me.
Warwick Cavill from Profitable Conversations. How are you, Warwick?
Yeah, very well, Justin. Thank you.
Awesome. Greg Sheehan, founder of Playbooks. How are you, mate?
I'm very good. Thank you, mate.
Excellent. And our host for today, Trent McLaren from DiviPay. It's all yours.
Perfect. Thank you, Justin, and welcome, audience. We have an amazing session today, and I'm so excited that you're all here. A little housekeeping to help keep this nice and fun and engaging. If you've not used Zoom, and I find that very highly unlikely in today's day and age, then you will know that we have a chat and a Q&A function in this session. So what I'd love for you to do, so that I know that you can hear me and see everyone else on the screen, is actually put something in the chat and the Q&A box and just comment on Justin's wonderful background if you'd like, or the fact that I'm wearing a hat and it's unprofessional. Any of those things are great. But if you can do that, just so we know that everything is super clear, it's crystal, and we can get underway. So first in the stunning, thank you, Sonia. Obviously, you're talking about Matt's beard. I think when you say that, that is awesome. And in the chat section, all crystal. I like it. Even better when people are repeating what I'm saying. So first things first, today we're talking about scaling business advisory. And what I'd love to do for each person one by one is actually just tell me. So Matt, I'm going to start with you. Tell me about you and why you're passionate about this topic. Why are you here? Why did you say yes?
My career has been in software, and I started in big business, but I've always looked at the principles that are applicable to helping a business run strongly and prepare for growth and continue to just grow. So I'm passionate about the software being leveraged in businesses, and that's sort of what part of the advisory piece is. And taking that from a systems and a data perspective, stepping over into the very practical commercial world of working with the business owner and or team and the various human elements of running and growing a strong business.
Awesome. Thank you, Matt. And I mean, Warwick, you obviously have a business built around profitable conversations. So talk to us about advisory and what role do you see it play?
I mean, hugely passionate, thanks, Trent, about small business. I describe myself as a reformed chartered accountant, but running my own practice many years ago, I saw huge opportunities working with the SME market, and that's been my passion. Moving out of accounting, I think there's a huge opportunities that just left unattended. That there's a big need in that space that we're just not addressing from an advisory perspective, and I guess that's what Profitable Conversations is all about.
Awesome. Very cool. Love that. Thanks, Warwick. And Ness, I mean, you guys at Spotlight make a living out of helping people visualize out the numbers and the data. But, what's your view on this advisory piece?
Yeah, absolutely, Trent. I've worked with Spotlight for nearly 3 years, worked in the cloud accounting and fintech world for nearly 10. This is where I am truly passionate and love working with the accountants. It is a revenue stream that is so important Definitely, it's where accountants that are finding great success are really playing in this space now. Spotlight reporting is a beautiful platform that allows for the integration of data and then spitting out into beautiful visual reports and three-way cash flow forecasting. So that's where I've come today to share my expertise from working with, small accounting firms right through to the Big Four, to really share what they implement to find their success when building those advisory relationships.
Awesome. Thank you, Ness. And Greg, I mean, you've brought everyone together to have this conversation. Why are you so passionate about scaling business advisory?
Yeah, thanks, Trent. Look, I have a very simple view on this, actually. In my mind, you can't lead a more purposeful life than to go and start a business doing what you love, right? To be able to, like, if you're a chef and you dream of owning a restaurant and you can provide for your family and those you love doing that, that's pretty cool. Or if you fix vintage motorcycles as a passion and you can do that, make a living, I think that's pretty cool. And so to be able to do that is a massively cool thing for any business owner, but business is super hard. And so they reach out to people who they trust the most. And I think the majority of people on this audience are the most trusted advisor to these business owners. So I look at it as I say really simply, it's just you're helping people genuinely live out their passion and make a living. And it doesn't get a lot better than that. I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, it's very cool. I agree. I love it. So if I just stay with you for a sec, because you've obviously walked the walk, you've worked in firms, you've had your own firm. When you think beyond, and this is kind of our first question, I'm going to open up to everyone after you, Greg, as well. But when we think beyond compliance, what do you think small business owners, or what are you hearing small business owners are asking for, or asking their advisors about when it's not tax related? What are the kinds of things you see them talk about?
Yeah, I mean, it'd be really interesting to hear others' views. I'm less connected into the practices themselves, not operating in practice, but probably two things for me here. One, it's just a huge time of uncertainty. There's lockdowns, and then we get released again, and there's more lockdowns, and then we're back inside again. It's all very frustrating, and I think a lot of business owners are really unsure of what the future looks like. So they're looking for help and a bit of certainty. In a world of ambiguity, it's always nice to sort of know what to do next. So I think that's one. And then the other thing I would want to throw in here is they need help. Business owners need help across so many different areas. And I guess the key thing that they're looking for is help from people who they perceive can help them. Mm-hmm. And we'll probably touch on that later as to, well, how do you get perceived, etc. So they'll look to the people who they trust, and then they'll look to the people who they know can help them or they perceive can help them.
Yeah. Warwick, what about you, Side? I imagine you speak to clients every day about this, assuming based on, the way that you're interacting with firms and so forth. What are you hearing from them? What are clients asking for when it's not tax related?
Well, I guess there's a number of things there. I guess that a lot of businesses these days are very heavily focused on the COVID support payments and stuff like that, which is occupying a lot of the minds of accountants in particular. But beyond that, there's a couple of answers to that. There was a survey done by the NAB a couple of years ago, 2018, I think it was. They surveyed small businesses and asked them what they needed from their accountants, and they surveyed accountants and asked them what they needed from small business. And the stunning thing there was that they said that small businesses are seeking a broad range of assistance, and their accountants typically only address a narrow range of these needs. And so that we're not really tackling that market. And some of the needs that they're not really tackling that the businesses are needing is more the strategy, the planning, business analytics, those sorts of things are the things that the accountants just don't seem to be providing. And the other answer to that question, it's not necessarily what the businesses are asking for, it's what they're not asking for that they need. And so I think there's a famous quote from Henry Ford that said, if I had have asked my customers what they needed, they would have said a faster horse. And Steve Jobs made the same sort of comment. He said, if I had have asked my customers what they needed, I would never have invented the iPod. So he observed, he watched, and I think that's part of the answer to this question as well, is observing the small businesses and seeing what they really do need rather than necessarily waiting for them to ask.
Awesome. Thanks, Warwick. And Matt, let me jump to you just as a slightly different piece here. We talk about business advisory, and for me personally, I'm sure everyone's heard of similar, but that term can be quite lofty, right? I think even if I say clients don't understand business advisory, I'm not sure every accountant understands business advisory because we lock so much into what that could be. What do you think about in business advice? How else would you repurpose and talk about what business advisory actually entails?
I think it can cover a lot of areas, and Warwick just touched on particular areas of expertise that perhaps you can offer as an advisor. And it does come, I think there is clearly some businesses that are getting started, those that are gearing for growth. That might be all organic. There might be special areas like mergers and acquisitions. There might be preparing for exit. As far as advisory, on a practical sense with the business, then part of that growth. How are they growing or improving their profitability as a business? There's a whole lot of advisory just in there, and the way they're working with their team, the way they manage, mature their business systems, train their people, get their processes, operating really efficiently. And you ideally want to remove the reliance on key persons in a business, and depending on the size and the stage of growth that a business is at, and perhaps the owner's intentions for exit one day. When that's clear, you can really work towards some planning there, and Warwick just touched on it again, strategy and different aspects of that. So I think there's a lot you can unpack, and there is the data side of things and surfacing that numbers. It all tells a story, and sometimes getting alongside the right people in a business to understand how they're interpreting all of that. That's a really key part of advisory as well.
Yes, that's probably a good pivot to you, mate, because obviously producing the reporting and side of it is one part, but actually articulating is another. Where do you see, like from accounting feedback, what are the challenges you hear clients have trying to understand advisory and the numbers and everything?
I think, oh, sorry, was that me or Ness?
Oh, sorry, I said Vanessa.
Okay, I wasn't sure at first either. Excellent. Yeah, I'll just double back to something that Warwick brought up. I totally agree with that, Warwick. So many clients don't know what they want, and I think it is so important for the accountant and the advisor to put forward the options that they can share and to bring those insights to life. The firms that we see using Spotlight most extensively, and therefore then transitioning that into solid revenue stream, is absolutely the ones that are proactively using the platform, tapping into the automation, and then being able to get insights in front of clients that have never seen the financial performance of their businesses presented like that previously, starting to have that conversation and really using Spotlight even as a marketing tool to be able to get insights in front of their clients and start that conversation. So many accountants come to Spotlight with one client that they're doing that reporting in Excel, and they want to try to recreate that in Spotlight. And absolutely, that is perfect. And that opens the door for those further conversations. But it's the ones that are really using it to expand on those insights and conversations with fresh clients. And yeah, the next step that I would say is then moving into the forecasting. So to be able to put together basic forward looking insights to be able to plan for the future. And that goes back to what you were saying, Greg. Everything is so unsure at the moment. I mean, my heart goes out to so many businesses in, my hometown of Sydney, but of course all over the world, of how difficult it is. And it's so hard now to plan for today, let alone into the future, but having those tools to help out in a really affordable way as well. I think in the past, a small business hearing that word advisory, they thought, oh God, I'm going to be hit with this massive bill. And that's where being able to get insights in an automated way that used to take a day or two, now it can take half an hour, and you can continue those discussions. So
thanks, Ness. That's great. Warwick, from your side, so if we think about how are advisors actually using these advisory works to stand up and win more work, what's been your kind of advice or guiding principle to those firms? How do they actually stand up and be noticed for the work that they're doing?
Well, my way of thinking is don't be a product looking for a solution, be a solution looking for a product, a service, if you like. So it's always starting from where the client is. And I think that a lot of times I see accountants in particular sort of saying, well, we've got this product, a health check or whatever it is. Now they're in a sales position. And I don't think that trusted advisors should ever be selling. I think there's, to me, it should be empowering a client to buy. And that's buying is different from selling. Getting a client to buy is quite a different conversation than getting, and we tend to do this all the time. And I think that's where the problem sort of occurs. So to me, the issue is learning to start from where the client is and not walking in there. So for example, the client may need a strategic plan, but if you walk in with a strategic plan, that's a product, right? They don't actually want a strategic plan. They want the benefits that flow from the strategic plan. And the conversation needs to be about how do you connect the benefits of, say, what Vanessa's talking about with Spotlight to Spotlight. You know what I mean? It's not they're wanting the benefits, and really understanding those benefits is the key thing in connecting and growing the practice in my view.
Well, it's the insights and being able to make better decisions, right? That's why we do what we do. It's because we want to be able to have a map that says, hey, this is what's working and what's not, and what do we need to do next, or at least have the option to make a decision. Matt, like, you would spend a lot of time working with firms that niche into specific sectors, right? I mean, Unleashed is very popular in that inventory management side. How have you seen firms really up their game working in a niche when we talk about advisory?
Yeah, it's a interesting area in the last period of lockdowns and whatnot, because some businesses have grown phenomenally, others have really grappled. And so Unleashed software, inventory management software, managing, moving software. Supply chain globally has been a headache for a lot of businesses and really hamstrung quite a lot. So advisors being able to get alongside, not just look at the financials, but even going into a more specialized area like understanding the inventory and the there's basics of just ordering purchase orders, but the planning side of things, what do they have to anticipate? There's multiple currencies involved. There's things like batch tracking and things like that. So the supply chain, and when you're trusting other businesses with potentially a lot of money of one of your business clients that's invested in stock, that's coming, whether it's finished goods or not, they need it here. They need it landed at the right time to deliver it to the right people, because they've got the demand or are working really hard at it. So it's important for their own personal reputation as a business, and as an advisor, having that understanding of inventory and the nuances of it. If there's a manufacturing component as well, that's another area where not just wholesalers or distributors, but say manufacturers needing goods to arrive so that they can complete and get this money that's tied up in stock sitting in a warehouse or multiple locations together and out the door to a customer. So stepping out, it might be aligned with a product like Unleashed software, which you can work with a client or tap into the client's knowledge and really marry up the financials alongside the inventory and help flush out where some of the pain points may be or money's tied up.
Yeah, I've got a follow-up for you, because I realize a lot of your clients are definitely being impacted through the pandemic, right? And I know that you have clients where they're thriving, but I can imagine there's a lot of product services-based businesses, pubs, breweries, etc., that are not thriving during this time. Do you have any insight into the accounting partners that are using Unleashed, recommending it? What are they doing with the clients that are not thriving, and what can we learn that the audience could pick up from that?
Great question. I think it's probably a trend I've observed is the pivot. How do they get alongside that business owner and look at what skills or what they've got at their fingertips that they can do and evolve and look at things differently, because there are grants and all of that and things that are tying up time, precious time that was normally spent servicing customers or building products and shipping it out the door. So it's, I think, accountants looking through a different lens, not just a lot of sleepless nights as well, thinking about and carrying the weight of those business owners and how do they help guide them moving forward to evolve and bring in new revenue streams potentially. And a big shift is just maybe the online selling and the e-commerce side of things. It might be opening up. We've seen a lot of venues that now serve coffee, for example. So there's a whole coffee roasting industry, and that can be booming, but they've still got to get the supply chain sorted as well. So it's just looking at it from a different lens as an accountant.
Greg, any thoughts from you on how this pandemic's affected that client-advisor relationship?
It's a great question. I think if anything, it's put maybe slightly marginal business models under the microscope. And it's made people, to Matt's point, it's made people really think quite quickly about how they can pivot their business. If they've got no revenue coming in or limited revenue, what can they do? And it's really put the pressure on the owners of the business and their advisors to think differently. And in that sense, like I am a bit of an optimist, right? But in that sense, it's been a good thing. Like it's allowed us to kind of go, you know what, maybe I can do something differently. And if I'm an advisor to business, maybe I need to think differently. So, that's, to me, that's been probably the biggest impact. Aside from all the negative stuff that's happened, one of the positives is we're thinking differently, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, I like that. I've had a really good question come in, and first gold star for the audience goes to Anthony Hanna for asking such a good question. So if you're listening and you'd like to get one of Trent's gold stars next, all you're going to do is put a question in and you're automatically going to get a star that means nothing other than I'm very proud of you. Anthony, great question. I'm going to ask this to everyone. It talks about so we've been talking about advisory for a long time. This is not a new concept. It's been in nearly 10 years. To Anthony's question, the struggle that a lot of people have is actually implementing and executing the work and having the resources to do it. Now, we're all struck down with pandemics. If you're in Sydney, you're answering Service New South Wales, trying to figure out what's my loan and grants and schemes look like. How do we execute and implement advisory when some firms, not all firms, some firms already feel super stretched? So this is something that they would love to do and they understand the concept, they buy into the theory of it. How do we actually get it done? Warwick, I'm going to start with you, my friend.
Well, the methodology I use is, having been an accountant and running my own practice and been under those time pressures, to me, you've got to leverage what you've already got. So to me, the way I start with this is not rushing off and saying, I've got this product I need to flog to clients and spend their time to learn it. But you've got a meeting coming up with a client next week. What conversations are you going to have in that meeting? It's as simple as that. It's not extra time. And let's just change that conversation slightly. Let's just leverage that. So let's already, if you've got really busy people, then you've got to utilize what they're already doing. And they're already running meetings. So if we could tweak those meetings, that would be a great starting point. Then by tweaking those meetings, we then start to find out what the real needs of the customers are and the clients are, and we're not going in there wasting time, and we find out what the needs are, and then we start to address those needs. So to me, it's starting with your very next client meeting.
I feel like I've got some really good questions on the back of your comments there, Warwick, just in the spirit of why we're all here, I think. Vanessa, I'll start with you. I can imagine you get a lot of people that buy Spotlight out of the excitement of wanting to do things, but then the implementation that follows can be tough. What are you doing with your firms to help them execute this every time when they come in with that gusto and that ambition? What are you doing to actually make sure they walk the walk and do what they said they wanted to do?
Yeah, absolutely. It is definitely hands down the greatest challenge is having the manpower and the productivity hours to not only obviously the outcome of executing a service like this, but implementing it in the first instance. And yeah, it is a great question from Anthony. It is one of the greatest struggles for all accounting firms at the moment. And probably one thing that I would say that I see firms do be able to execute this successfully is skill up your whole team. Even, right from the word that you get the graduates in, they are going to have the implementation of that vast experience in their in their toolkit. Encourage partners to be able to give the power across the business. Invest in it, not just, so many accountants just simply look at the cost of the software every month. That's actually not what the cost is to their business, which I think is always a really funny kind of conversation. They'll look at that on the website. The true cost is being completely committed to investing in the productivity hours to get your whole business skilled up and then be able to have the confidence and the expertise to execute quickly using the software, then spending the time in front of the clients. But probably the number one thing that I would touch on there, and spending quite a bit of time in the past with Steph Hines, I know she does this in her business. Every accountant in her firm is skilled up to have that conversation with a client, being able to have opportunity to do role playing. So some of the other junior mid-tier accountants might present the report to the partner before they then have the kind of go ahead to report to the business owner. So I would say the encouragement of the cross skill set in the business.
So I love everything you just said. The challenge I have is, where do we get scalable resources with this, right? Because there's time, there's resource, there's going to be a willpower from the accountant to want to sit down and train all their teams. Now, Greg, this is a loaded question, because I know exactly why you built playbooks, because this is the part of the conversation that's coming out of it. But how do we actually have our teams have scalable? I know the topic of this is scalable advisory conversations, but from your words, like your side, how do you guys help implement people to have scalable conversations? Tell us about that.
It does sound like a patsy question.
I know,
Warwick
said it in my head.
And even when Warwick said it, I'm like, I'm going to get Warwick on the team. Look, I'll be completely transparent. When we started Playbooks, the big driver was, how do we help accountants do advisory better? It had bugged me for 10 years. We weren't that great at it in our own firms, right? Because we could never get time, we could never scale it. What did we talk about? If we're helping that chef, build a better restaurant, what did we actually talk about? And the chef was wanting to make more money. There was no surprise in that. But we didn't know how to even start that conversation. So what happened was, we actually went out and we spoke to a whole lot of other accounting firms when we were starting Playbooks, and we said, what do you need? Maybe we can give you these playbooks, this is how it got its name, on what to do, how to be a better restaurant, and how to build a more profitable restaurant, or a plumbing business, or a farm, or whatever it is. What we really quickly worked out is that people were stressed, they were busy, they had a calendar that was full. They had no capacity for it. So they could go and look at templates, they could go and do a bit of reading, but they just didn't have time for that. And so it was kind of an accidental find for us that we needed to go and solve that problem first. People have got these busy calendars, they've got meetings with people who they haven't seen for a couple of months. What did they talk about last time? What are they going to talk about this time? They're with a client now. There's somebody sitting in reception that's 2 minutes away from meant to start that meeting. This is pre-COVID and pre-Zoom. It's probably worse now, right? So having an ability to just manage that process easily was the first step. But I could bore everybody to tears about that. But I think for me it's about being intentional. It's you've got to really want this. I don't know too many 8-year-olds that are growing up thinking, I really want to do tax compliance when I'm older. That's really what I want to do. But they love business. Maybe as they get into their teens, they love business and they want to help. They want to be part of something. And so you've got to be intentional, I think, is the first step. A bunch of things we could talk about on this, but you really need to want this, right?
No, I totally agree with all the points. Everything we're saying contributes and bottles to the same thing. The tech exists, the gusto, the wanting, the ambition to get it done exists. But what we've lacked is a scalable process to make it happen. And that's what I love about what you're doing. So, and again, I don't work for Playbooks, everyone. This is just me. I'm off script right now. You can tell, because I'm full of joy and excited. But that scalable process, and actually having something that anybody can sit in the chair, anyone can read through it, and we know that it's going to get executed and all the right questions are going to get asked, because we've built it. We've built the system and we've built the process. So that's what I love about what you guys are doing. That's what I love about why I'm actually here. That's why I said yes to being able to come and host the session, was because I'm a big believer in what the future that you're trying to help this industry with. So, points and props to you guys for making it happen.
Can I chip in, Trent?
What's that, sorry?
Can I chip in?
Yeah,
on Vanessa's point, and just on this thing about processes, it's actually breeding a great company culture. And if your company culture, to Vanessa's point around the accounting firm that wants their grad program, their juniors, their mid-level, everyone to be able to go and present, that breeds a culture of success, right? Where everyone is there to chip in, to be able to help. deliver a really great customer experience. And I think that's something that is so important to be factoring into all of this stuff as well. And especially when a lot of our teams are working remotely or working from home, keeping up that that culture and that dialogue is something that every company needs to work a lot harder on.
Agreed. I love it. I appreciate it. If you want to do more, then you totally can. And yes, Matt, over to you, mate.
Yeah, thank you. So working in with Playbooks a little bit, looking at the business advisory side of things from, Unleashed is a piece of software, but I looked at, from my experience as a consultant and 20 years in software, of just how can we assist more advisors to do this in a scalable and a systematic way. And part of it is, those very simple, sometimes conversations and calling out the obvious, or perhaps not so obvious, the blind spots. And there's a very simple tool called the Noster model, which is all about managing complex change. And I did a post earlier today on LinkedIn actually about it. So looking at and coming alongside a business owner when they're trying to incorporate some software and get an outcome, first of all, managing the expectations, whether they've started or they're partway through, just being able to help them take stock and looking at, in this Noster model, it's a very simple conversation piece with a business to look at the vision, the skills, the incentives, the resources, and the action plan. And if they're lacking in any one of those areas, the result of transitioning to change can be uphill. And being able to facilitate that sort of a conversation. I just got a one-pager together with our Unleashed marketing team. So it's not about Unleashed or inventory software here. That the tool there, Noster model, is worth a dig into, and assisting clients in an advisory sense. And if it is skilling up your team, it's a very simple tool that just helps identify gaps and work out a plan to get everyone on the same page so they can move towards a successful change. And probably the second part, with back to the question, I think it was Anthony, how do you get that outcome implementing? I think you've got to just manage expectation carefully, because it's one thing, there's cost, but getting it in, it's the time and the learning curve that a business has to go through. That's before they can start to realize the benefits of pieces of software and data. So just managing expectations is a really key part, and having a good look ahead at what when they can start to realize those benefits.
Awesome. Thanks, Matt. If anyone wants a copy of Matt's Noster model that he's working on, feel free to put your hand up in the chat, or just type, "Yes, please, Matt, I would like that. Your beard's really good." If you write all of that in, that would be great. Thank you, Matt. That's awesome. That's great. We can all use more resources on that side. Warwick, talk to me about profitable conversations and your approach. How do you think about this how is it the scalability piece? Talk to me through that and the approach itself.
Well, the approach itself, I guess that I looked at it from a practitioner's point of view, a practical perspective, and I felt that investing a lot of time and a lot of money up front to learn something is not consistent with where a lot of accountants are at. They just don't have that time and money. And to me, it's not necessarily in the first instance getting the whole team on board. It's about who needs to have the conversation, where is the conversation going to happen. So to me, there are some basic strategic principles. Play to your strengths, right? Play in a market where your strengths are valued, and play in a way that minimizes risk. And to me, that's where the model comes from. So let's just start with Trent. If you happen to be the accountant, I'd sit down and say to you, listen, let's start today. You've got a meeting tomorrow with a client. Let's just talk about that meeting. What is it how are you going to approach that meeting? How are you going to have the conversation? How are you going to learn what they really need without superimposing? Now, one of the things that accountants are struggling with, all professions are struggling with, is being the expert. If you see yourself as the expert all the time, then you're only going to be able to solve a limited range of problems. Right? What happens if the client is the expert in their own business? How are you going to add value when you're not the expert? But we're always coming in with this model of we need to be the expert. Well, that automatically puts you in a product flogged position. And you go to a doctor, there's a particular structure to the conversation. Ask, diagnose, tell. I'll ask you what your problems are, I diagnose what your problem is, and then I'll tell you what you should do. That only works for technical problems. Right, that's a very limited way of approaching problem solving. So what we do is let's have a broader conversation than that and facilitate the client through and understand in depth. And how do we actually facilitate problem solving? So technical problems are only part of the story. And as we move more towards AI, we're going to find more and more of the technical problems are actually solved by AI. They won't need us as experts anymore to the same degree. So that, you know, the clients just don't need that. It's the adaptive challenges where the real space is required. And that's where it's a different conversation. And it's being able to move out of that space and understanding what value is and how to create it. And that's just, this is the biggest single challenge, I think, for a lot of the professions, particularly accountants, is always going in there having to be the expert. And that's a different way of thinking and a different way of approaching. So that's what we do. We just start with the conversation and then start to say, okay, let's talk about that conversation for that client tomorrow. Not let's talk about training you for the next 3 months on a particular product. Let's just have the conversation and then learn what comes out. It is really then the client buying the services, and then we find that there's very little fee resistance. There's very little selling that's required, or no selling required, because the client is actually buying and you're connecting them to a broader vision. They don't actually want your services, right? Services are not like a Porsche. People don't go into a business and say, I want to buy those services. I want a Porsche because of what it is, inherently what it is, but I don't want the service. What I want is the benefit that that service gives me. So to me, it's about having the conversation about the benefit and hooking the client into the benefit. So you're not actually selling a service, you're selling the client their own vision, and you become the pathway to that vision. So to me, it's a different conversation. How do you make that vision rich for the client so that they want that vision? And then you as the pathway, there's no fee objections because it's incidental. It's the vision is what I really want. And this is the big picture. This is what I need to have. I don't want the service, if that makes sense. So it's about those sorts of conversations.
Definitely does. It's I don't want the Porsche. I want to see people see me in the Porsche driving the car thinking, wow.
You do a lot with Photoshop, Trent.
Yeah, I know. I'm actually quite good at that too. Thanks, Roy. That's awesome. I think like we're coming to the end of our questions. So what I would say to everyone that's listening, if you've got questions for our panel, you can see they're ready to just pour out their heart and soul for you right now. If you ask them something, they'll answer it. What I want to get you all to think about, we've talked about some really broad concepts and topics, and I want to challenge you to actually think about something specific someone can do from this session. So not talk about more advisory with your firm, not go and look at something particular, something specific you think they should do post this meeting. Is anyone game enough to go first, or should I just pick someone out?
I'm happy to go first, Trent.
Perfect.
I would probably say take a moment to think about the clients on the books, the clients that have very clean books themselves, and start to think about what insights you can get in front of them, especially at this time of year when you're closing off from last year, and start to think about tangibly, you know, if maybe 5 clients every month that you're going to start to have a conversation with them. Don't be scared to ring them up, flag something in their position from last year and ask them why. Why do they think that was the case? What happened? And I mean, you know, we all know what the probably outcome of any negative fluctuations in businesses was from the last 12 months, and then start that conversation. So I would probably say flag to pick up the phone to clients that you haven't spoken to in a while, run a report. Of course, I'm going to say start a Spotlight trial, grab that data through Spotlight, spit out a beautiful report, and start a conversation around that to flag as an action from the topic today. Perfect.
Thank you, Vanessa. So your first challenge, everyone, is find 5 clients, pick up the phone, speak to them about what's going on and how you might be able to help. Thank you, Vanessa. I appreciate that. Matt, what's your one specific item you think everyone should do post this conversation?
I think it's taking stock of which clients you've got perhaps experience and skill in with an advisory sense that you may be able to revisit if you look through your client list, where you can perhaps inject some life and revisit how they are going about operating in those areas where you've got maybe a deeper level of expertise that perhaps you haven't offered to a client before, that may not be specifically, if I talk to accountants here, financial. But if you've got industry experience, if you've got experience in particular, it might be software, it might be, they want automation, but across yourself and your team, if you've got skills and experience, it's almost a little audit internally. Have I put that forward to the right clients, knowing what they're trying to do? And is it timely for me to be able to get in touch and offer and check in with how they're going? Not necessarily offering anything, but checking in with how they're going to see if you can add some value.
Awesome. Thank you, Matt. Warwick, next actionable.
You won't be surprised at mine, but to me, the actionable thing is look at the clients you've already got meetings with. To me, you don't have to create a reason to have the meeting with that client. You've probably already got a compliance meeting coming up. I often find that accountants struggle, just to cold call clients and say, just start the conversation. Well, you don't need to. You've already got a client meeting coming up next week. So my challenge to you would be, how do you leverage off the back of the compliance work to start the client speaking and talking through their issues, and you learn to listen differently? So to me, it's about getting the client but leverage off the back of your next compliance meeting and just get them talking about their business, their needs, their issues, without you feeling the pressure that you have to answer the questions and solve the problems for them. Just get them talking and in a different way.
Awesome. Thank you, Warwick. Love it. Greg, your specific action point for everyone to do straight after this meeting.
Yeah, look, and I'm not going to say go and sign up to Playbooks, although I probably just did. But genuinely, ask your clients how they perceive you. So if you want to be a Porsche dealer, to Warwick's point, ask them if they see you as a Porsche dealer, or whether they see you as a Skoda dealer, right? Like, how do they perceive you? Because when they've got a need for a Porsche, they're going to go to the Porsche dealer. So ask them that, and you might need to do that carefully through a survey, because they might not be 100% honest. And then when you get the results of that survey, the results of that perception, and they see you quite differently to how you see yourself, then start thinking about how you can go about changing that.
Awesome. Thank you, Greg. Justin, why don't we throw you in here, mate? What's your one specific request for everyone that you think they should do post this conversation? I know, I'll put you on the spot. You're on mute too.
Yeah, very good question. Great conversations. I think you need to take all of that and look at what is the story that I'm telling about the value that we provide, right? So how can you reflect back? You've gone and looked at the 5 clients, you've identified where your skills closely align, you've identified the clients you're at meetings with, you understand how clients perceive you. So how are you reflecting that story to showcase how you're delivering great value for your clients?
Awesome. Thank you. If I had to give everyone one action point from right now, my point to you would be to pull out a piece of pen, piece of paper, think about who is it in my business that actually drives advisory conversations today? Do we have enough of those people, and are we actually doing it the right way? What I want you to really think about here is, do we need to buy and hire more of these people in? Do we need to contract those people in, or do we need to somehow think about outsourcing that somewhere else so that we can provide the right service to our client? So analyze and take stock of your current employees and whether you actually have the advisory skill set you think you need to drive this, not even just drive this service, to offer good advice to your clients, because that's all we're talking about. We're not saying that we want you to make lots of money off advisory. That'll happen as a byproduct of you offering really good advice and helping your client through the storm that we're all going through. So well done, everyone. That wasn't even on the agenda, so I just threw that in to test your paying attention. And Justin, you passed. Well done. So Justin, Greg, I'll hand over to you. I think that's, unless there's any other questions from the audience that you want to throw in here, I think this starts to conclude and wrap our conversation for today. You're on mute.
Thank you. Oh, Justin, yeah, you go, mate.
Greg, I was going to hand over to you for a minute.
Oh, look, I'm going to be really quick. I'm just going to say I would encourage you to lean into being a much, much better advisor. Think of 8-year-old you, think of the purpose and the excitement you had for your future You are now, the bulk of the audience here are accountants. You have got this incredible opportunity to impact people's lives. They are each doing what it is that they think is going to bring them, fulfillment. They're running a business. They may be struggling in that business, particularly given COVID, and they see you as their most trusted advisor. So really lean into that. If you market yourself as a chartered accountant or a CPA and business advisor, think about what great business looks like. Be open to learning. To Warwick's point, just to ask great questions. Like really lean into that. Don't be frightened of it. Be intentional and enjoy it. There's so much to be gained, and your clients are going to be so much better off.
All right, I firmly believe, as I'm sure all of you do, that accountants, advisors, coaches, and consultants are the unsung heroes of our small business community and our growing economies. And, you're all there to support your clients and the businesses to help them navigate the challenging times that we have and build those plans to help them scale and thrive in the future. I hope all of you who have attended today's webinar have thoroughly enjoyed the conversation, and we look forward to seeing you at the next event. Thank you very much for coming, and thank you so much to all of our panelists today for contributing your time and expertise to this conversation. We greatly appreciate it. And one final thing, we'll be turning some of the insights from this webinar into a document that we can all share and leverage well into the future. We'll also be sending around and sharing a video of this webinar with everyone afterwards. So you will have it there in prosperity to share with your teams as well. From all of us at Playbooks and the panelists and myself, Justin Flitter, thank you very much for attending today. And yeah, it's been a great session. Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day. On your way out, panelists, attendees, feel free to rank this session out of 10 if you'd like. Gives us an idea to make sure we weren't just talking to each other and you hated it. Tell us if you enjoyed it out of 10. So just on your way out, put a number in the chat section, 1 through to 10. 10 being that was awesome, 1 being you've got a lot of work to do. That would be great. This helps us improve these sessions in future. Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Sonia. All the feedback's really useful so that we can do more of this stuff, or the Playbooks team can figure out if this was of use to you. That's why we're here. We're here to help you and where you are in your journey. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Take care out there. Bye.